Hafa My name is Ryan Mummern. I'm the general manager of Title Guarantee, and I'm also the host of Market Movers. I'm here with Charlie Hermosa. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
I'm appreciative of you joining us, especially this is what I consider our inaugural podcast, right? So really happy to have you as the first guest, especially because of what you do. Can you tell us about what you do?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one, it's an honor to be number one, so I appreciate for you thinking me. So I'm the co-founder and president and CEO of Bella Wings Aviation. I think most people know me from working with APL, being the general manager back then. Now I'm really full time with Bella Wings Aviation. Where one of the things that we try to say is that we're a full service provider when it comes to drones, drone services, and so one of the things that we've been trying to do is really build up the infrastructure to be able to promote drones in a way that they can be utilized across many aspects of different businesses and different services. So, that's what the evolution of the company really came about during COVID, and the one of the things that we started to do was we started taking into messages on Facebook for people that needed food and things that they needed from the pharmacy because they couldn't get out. So we started taking those messages, and we were actually delivering food for families that needed that. When we started going out to the areas that they lived, we quickly saw that it was pretty rough to get to some of these areas, pretty deep in the village. And we came back home and we started thinking about what would be a better way to be able to get goods to people that are really deep in the village areas, or when you look at the Micronesian islands, how do we get it from island to island in a good, cost-effective way? And my logistics background, Perla, our the co-founder, her aviation background, we kind of put those things together, and we said, drones. Let's utilize drones to be able to, move goods from point A to point B, and then the evolution of everything else came about.
When you mentioned infrastructure, when you're deploying a new technology, there is a lot of infrastructure that needs to be there. And from what I understand, you are involved in the education side of that as well, and bringing on new drone pilots and new capacity. Can you talk to me about some of the obstacles that you had to overcome in deploying drone technology here?
No, and that's a great point. So one of the things that when we talk about infrastructure, when we're looking at seeing how we were going to grow the market, we quickly saw that there was a need to stand up an education program because we needed to train and get the pilots certified, or individuals that want to come into the industry, get them certified. So anywhere we go now, whether it's another island nation or another state, one of the things that we try to do is promote education first. We try to train the pilots, and then once they get trained, they get certified, then we sort of put them into a pipeline where they're going to touch on areas that they want to play into. So whether it's flying FPVs, whether it's videography, whether it's scanning, whether it's mapping, whether it's design, whether it's flying the drone shows and so forth. So many areas, so many expertise that comes about from that type of training. So the other aspect of the infrastructure, obviously, when it comes to tech, something that just came online that we're actually playing with is the Starlink.
Okay.
Right. So we're, having the infrastructure to have Wi-Fi in areas is pretty key as well, to be able to fly safely the drones. Education, Wi-Fi. When it comes to delivery, that's one that we're working on right now. There's a lot of areas that don't have postal codes, right? So, and it's hard to ping the GPS. So one of the things that we worked on right now is creating an infrastructure that would allow everybody to have an address system, so that when we do develop the ability to deliver goods, we can pinpoint exactly where you want the delivery done based on the codes that we're going to give you. It's an address code.
Right. It's essentially KML, like a KML, point or indicator.
Right. Pretty much, right? It's just kind of pinpointing exactly where you want delivered, and that's exactly where the drone is going to deliver. So, kind of peeling that back, that's a lot of the infrastructure that's not in place that we need to really look at before we can really turn on the lights on making the delivery system work well.
What have you seen as the highest level of adoption for drone technology in your journey?
It has to be in the construction industry.
Okay.
So the contractors have really, obviously before drones were available, a lot of the surveying, aerial surveying, had to be done either by plane or by helicopter, which is very costly.
Okay.
So the drone technology now, it's very economical. The features and the payloads that you can add to these drones to do what you need it to do is unbelievable. The technology is really advancing. They've gone to being very large drones carrying very big cameras for mapping, to very small drones having their own individual cameras, infrared type cameras as well. The evolution is going to continue in that sector. So we've seen a lot of growth in the construction industry, and that's one area that we want to continue to concentrate in.
I see. So, and that's actually how I came into contact with you relative to the drones, right? I've always known you in the capacity as your prior role in logistics, but I had heard through the grapevine that you were doing LiDAR mapping and overhead mapping based on KML coordinates, right? Or, geocodes. And you've used that to create topography maps, correct?
Correct.
Right. And that's kind of useful because for a surveyor doing that via land and elevation study on the ground, it's significantly more difficult and time intensive than you can do by air. And you can do it. Can you talk to me about the time savings for that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when we look at those aspects, on the surveying side, one of the things that we do need to note is the fact that although the data sets that the drones are collecting, a surveyor still has to review the work, and they still have to sign off on it and punch it.
Correct.
But it's getting there. We really want to work together with the surveyors and the Association of Surveyors to see how we can move along and see how we can get the actual data sets that the drones are collecting to be certified by the individual, by a pilot. But until now, we still need a surveyor to be able to certify the data sets.
Are there other places where that's happening?
In other countries, there are. And I think, again, it's just a proof of concept that we have to be able to show the correctness, or the error that the data sets are collecting. Mm-hmm. And if it's very minimal, or maybe it's collecting better data than what an actual surveyor can do manually, then it makes sense. So those are the things that we're trying to promote, and we want to be able to show the capabilities because, as you talked about the topographic maps, I mean, the data sets that it's collecting, historical data that you can comprise, and you could actually, collect data that would allow you to look at from day one of the construction to the last day and see the progression on those data sets. So it's really building on that aspect of the surveying industry that the drones will be able to play into.
Right, and then also the advantage is you don't have a labor issue per se. Right? You have your drones are readily available at all times, and then also speed. Right, for someone to do a study by land, they have to cut through the boonies and get in the jungle. You have to deal with all those hardships and the time and the physical toll of that versus you do it from the air and accomplish it in about half the time.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a good way to look at it, probably half the time, where maybe some surveys, a few acres, could take a couple of months or a month. We could probably do in a couple of weeks or days.
Have you actually had a surveyor sign off on your topography mapping?
Not for the projects that we've done so far. They've actually taken the data, and the error has been very, very minimal. But they've been using it more for developmental purposes.
Right, because that's what you need. You essentially need an elevation study to actually cost estimate.
Correct.
To do an actual floor plan, so you can estimate the cost of construction. So
correct.
And right, and especially with the permitting infrastructure the way it is and the timelines for those kinds of things, it really helps to get all your ducks in a row in advance of that, and that would be very helpful.
Yeah, no, and when you look at land management, right? I think whenever we have to go and get
why are you smiling, Charlie?
Well, because it's what I'm going to say. It's probably shock many people, but not really. But I mean, so when you go to land management and they bring out the old plans, right? And they say, which lot are you looking at? And they kind of start going through the pages. And in my mind, I'm like, my Lord, we're in the digital, in 2024, where all those plans should be digitized, and drones can actually create those for land management, so that it's easier and readily available. They can search it. They have historical data that's digitized, and you have an actual picture or an actual video that can pop up with the specific lot. So
Yeah, we all joke about the government and provision of services, but I do respect our partners at land management because they do what they can with what they have, right? And it's always very hard to move that machine to the point where you can adopt new technology because it's not just about buying the shiny new car or the new technology. It's about getting adoption internally because I've seen in our own journey of implementing technology in our process, that was the hard part, getting the people to buy in and do it the way they're supposed to instead of hacking it and doing it the way they wanted to because that's the way they understood and utilizing 100% of the tool versus 10% of the tool. And that is a challenge. And some agencies have been more successful than that. But I always think, or I've come to the conclusion that any adoption of technology, especially for a sector that has so much riding on it, like real estate, it has to be a public-private partnership. And that's because the private sector is more agile and more predictive in how the technology can deploy and be used, and then have ultimate adoption by the government once the private sector, who are essentially the super users, establish the standard that they want to use moving forward. And then because the government is a service provider, so they need to adjust to the needs of their customers.
No, I completely agree. I mean, the folks that do work in land management, they do a phenomenal job and very knowledgeable. But I think that, like you said, being able to adopt new ways to do business is always good because it can streamline many of the processes they have internally. And I think we see that across the board in any government sector, right, where we want to be able to streamline the process so things can move a little bit faster. But I think the system that they have today, it's pretty impressive how they're able to identify everything. It's pretty, and it comes with a lot of learning and education. But I think that the proof of concept is probably the best, and it's always a good way to be able to kind of put that out there, and hopefully we'll be able to put something in front of them that they can see and say, okay, maybe it's time, right? Maybe it's time for them to be able to move to the next level of the way the digital world is moving towards.
I agree, especially from the economic side of it. It just makes more sense, right? And GPA is a good example, where they're using a lot of technology. They use drones frequently, right, to map out their lines, and they have their own GIS system, which they use and they have a lot of robotic process automation. So it's actually an excellent case study in how the government can adopt technology, but the line agencies aren't necessarily as agile because they have different procurement and all that other stuff, right?
Right, exactly. And this, there's always there has to be a balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you kind of peek inside the hood and you look at the processes, those processes were created for a reason. But now if we can add just a little bit of layer of technology to, again, kind of streamline the process, it's always good to look at it to see exactly how they can, now that we're looking at AI, AI is really going to, it's changing the dynamics of, the whole world. And I teach at UOG as well, and one of the things that I tell the students is that when we start talking about AI, is the fact that we need to control AI. AI can't control us,
Mm-hmm.
which can happen. AI could eventually be running things for us automatically,
Right.
But we need to make sure that we control it. And so when we look at AI and the evolution of AI, and then you kind of put that layer in everything that we're doing in construction. In land management, it's going to take it to the next level.
Who were some of your early adopters? Because when I think of the deployment of new technology, I think of this movie called the Hudsucker Proxy, right? And in the Hudsucker Proxy, they hire some guy to be the head of the company with zero experience. They're hoping that he fails, but he has one idea, and he presents the idea on a paper napkin, and it's a circle. It's like, for kids, and he jumps at it like everyone's supposed to get it. And ultimately, when they manufacture it, it's the hula hoop, right? And it's this revolution. The kids love it; they go crazy. But for you, drones, right? I'm going to do drones. Like, what was the reception like for you?
I think the early adopter, and I think I would have to give credit to Governor Carl Gutierrez at GVB. So, we're in COVID. we're coming out of COVID, and everybody was locked down. So talking to GVB, they wanted to do something big in 2021, for liberation, and obviously we had a meeting with them about drones in the past, and so they asked us, like what would it take for us to get a drone show, and so we started working on it, and it immediately made sense. And then when you combine it with fireworks, it's just amazing. And I think that as we continue to do more shows, the connections with the fireworks are going to continue to grow as well. Potentially at one point, we're all going to do simultaneously, right? So fireworks and drones at the same time.
Yeah.
I've spoken to Jeff about that.
I was hoping for it.
Yeah.
I was watching the skies this New Year's.
Yeah, we were talking about it. We're going to get there. We're
Yeah.
going to get there. But so early adopters to that, sure, it was entertainment, but I think that it was also a great platform and a great step forward for Guam to understand that we can have the same technology as the mainland, right? To do some states on the mainland haven't seen a drone show before, and we're doing them out here.
Right.
So they were very early on that, and from there, obviously the evolution of the other stuff that we've been working on the construction side with the mapping, surveying has also taken shape from there. So a lot of subcontractors have reached out for just quick work, either doing quick mapping or quick videographies, and one of the sectors that we want to continue to play into is the real estate market. Mm-hmm. That's really a market for us that really it tells a story whenever we do a video for a realtor, mm-hmm. Because they want to be able to put that out in the air, and kind of the footage that we want to be able to capture is in a way that can tell the story for the realtor on trying to sell that property.
Right. So, and just even from the videography standpoint, there's a certain way you shoot real estate. There's a certain way you shoot other things. So there's a style, right? So having expertise in that format is key. But circling back to your early adopter story, tell me true, could you actually execute a drone show before you sold it to Governor Gutierrez?
No. So no. So one of the things that we did was we actually brought and this company was actually featured on America's Got Talent.
Okay.
AJT, and so we outsourced it to them.
Mm-hmm.
They were willing to come out to Guam, so they came out. They showed us the technology. They showed us how things worked, and then we took the next step on investing in our own equipment, and then we've been doing our shows ourselves from that point on.
So they essentially consulted, and you kind of learned by watching and associating, and then executed on your own moving forward?
Right, correct. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, when they came out, and the company was called Verge Arrow, mm-hmm. So they're very big in the mainland. They do a lot of private shows. They do a lot of community shows as well. But they came out. We saw the technology, and from that point on, we made the decision to invest, and then obviously we want to be able to promote that as well. So,
off the mic, right? We were talking a little bit about how to get a business like that started, and at your heart, you're an entrepreneur. This is your thing now, but you've had other things, right? I don't know if you're still doing Guam Gifts, right?
Yes.
Right. So, can you tell me a little bit about what I should do if I wanted to start a business that involves a technology that isn't really deployed here?
So I think one of the things that I always tell some of the folks will call me up and say, okay, what do you think about this idea? And one of the things that I tell them is to be able to look at the market, right? Look to see what this. For me, my thing has always been creating companies that can promote change, right? So whether it's a positive change or make a change on an existing type of business. So like for entertainment, right? So it's a little bit, so it's not fireworks, but it compares to fireworks, right? Because they're drones in the air. Mm-hmm. Obviously solving the issue of the mapping, right? So having somebody in the jungles trying to, the surveying aspect of it, using drones kind of cuts time, and reduces the economics of being able to have somebody out there. So I tell them to, look at the market, right? Size it up, see exactly what the market looks like. Is there a possibility for change? Can you impact change on the business structure that you want? and then design the business for you to be able to create it in a way that allows you to have the flexibility to have growth, right? So you also have to understand whether it's going to be a passion project, or long term. Whether you're going to start it 3 or 4 years, flip it, sell it. You also have to have that in the back of your mind. There's some folks that start a company and say, "This is for the legacy of my family, and I'm going to have it for 100 years." There's some folks that are in it for creating a product or starting a business. They'll do it for 3 or 4 years. They'll flip it, sell it, and they'll do something else. So those two different mindsets, you kind of have to understand where you sit on those things. So those are some of the things that I talk through with a lot of the folks that are looking at opening or starting up a company. Is look at the market. Does it impact change? Can you impact change? What's the long-term strategy? Whether it's going to be a short sell, long sell. What is it that you want to do with the business?
Understood. What resources are out there for technology business or for people who want to start technology businesses, respective to like funding and startup costs?
So that's one thing, right? Funding is always it always deters a lot of folks, and I think the one thing that I would tell a lot of the folks is don't be afraid, because there's a lot of ways to be able to raise capital for a good idea, and some of the things could be through grants, federal grants that are out there for small businesses that have a really good idea, as similar to what we were talking about before. There's angel investors. Angel investors are folks that have disposable income that are willing to put money on your idea. So, and there's many ways to be able to reach out to these angel investors that are throughout the world. I mean, they're there to support. You have venture capitalists also. I mean, that's a little bit more cutthroat. The VCs are very, very tough. I've dealt with a lot of VCs, and they're very, very tough. But family and friends. That's also a good way to be able to start. Bank loans, line of credits. So when it comes to funding, I don't want people to get scared, because if you really truly believe on the business that you have or the business that you want to start, you'll be able to find a funding mechanism. SBA has a great learning program that you go through an SBA program that allows you to understand exactly how to write the business plan, how to get the funding, how to start it up, and all that good stuff. So I think that, when it comes to resources as well, one of the things that I've always done on the tech side is there's a lot of incubators out there. And if you go online, you can find a good incubator that has a lot of good historical data on some of the projects that have come out of those incubators. And you kind of see and get a good idea of what they've gone through, and then probably similar to what you're going to go through as well.
Understood. How are we on time?
You guys are currently at 24 minutes.
Okay, we just keep it like 40 minutes at, maybe like, yeah. I'm going to ask you, and take time, because we can always edit it,
Okay.
right, before you go into it. But I'm going to ask you about, are you a reader?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you kind of what the 3 most influential books that you've read are. And then I'm going to ask you what you're reading now. Okay? And I'm going to ask you what is one lesson that should carry through in terms of entrepreneurship, or is kind of like your central principle.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So, yeah. Charlie, in the spirit of entrepreneurship, right? Can you tell me what your influences have been? Specifically, I understand that you're a reader. What are the 3 most influential books that you've read that have helped you on your entrepreneurial journey?
So I think probably the top 3 books that I would say is, number 1 is a book called Good to Great.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've had a chance to read that.
Yes.
It's a great book, right? And the emphasis is on how to be able to understand the position that you're in, understand the team that you have, and really turn them into a great, well-oiled machine. And I think for me, kind of reading through some of those passages there has allowed me to understand very easily the notion of, like, for example, you need to have the right people on the right bus, right? And if you don't have people that want to be on the bus, then you have to get the people that want to be on the bus.
Right.
Right. So those philosophies are very important. As simple as they sound, having the right people on the bus, it's very simple, but it's so true. Because when you look at the business aspect of what you do and other companies do, they're constantly looking at that. It's making sure that we have the right people on board that are working for us. And so when you're doing a startup company, that's something that's very critical because it could make or break you if you don't have the right people or partner up with the right people that have the same vision for you to be able to take it to the next level. So it's very key to trust. I think trust is number one when it comes to a startup because whoever you bring on board, it's you and them, right? Together building this new business. The second book I would say is 1 Second Away, and I probably would have to look at the title. Just it's about they talk about Wayne Gretzky,
Okay.
right? And so it's Wayne Gretzky was not the fastest, the strongest, but his ability to see the movement of the pucks ahead of everybody else allowed him to position himself to know exactly where the puck was going to be next.
Right. It's like chess. You
It's
you see 2 moves ahead of
Right.
everybody else.
Exactly. And so being able to understand your business and understand the market, you have to be able to make decisions that you don't know, but you have to be able to feel them. So they talk about gut instinct. They talk about A executives and B executives. So A executives are the ones that do gut instinct, and they just kind of feel it, they see it. B executives, you need Bs, but B executives, they make decisions based on data.
Right.
And so data is really information that's from the past, right? So you're making forward-looking decisions based on past information, right? So they talk about that, and to me, that's a perfect way to look at when you're starting up a business because you don't really know where it's going to go, but you're going to start making decisions based on instinct. And that can be developed, right? I think that the power that you have to be able to understand and see what the next movement is comes through time and experience.
Right. I'm a subscriber to that because one of my books is Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, right? And it talks about that instinct being the subconscious of all your experience coming to fruition before you can rationalize it. And that's where that instinct comes from. But not to step on your list, sorry.
Yeah, no.
What's number 3?
So this one's a good one. It's actually it's called the Celestine Prophecy.
Okay.
Okay, and it's a journey, but it's really the makeup of the book is a storyline on how we perceive people through their aura and energy.
Okay.
And so it talks a lot about how things just don't happen. Things happen for a reason, but we have to develop. And so it kind of takes you through this journey on developing this power to be able to look at people's aura and say whether they're having a good day, bad day. And you can actually, if you really practice, it's almost like yoga.
Okay.
If you continuously practice, you start developing it. You can start seeing the green glow or the red glow around people or the yellow glow around people.
It's like Dianetics, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's the same, right.
Sort of same philosophy.
Right.
And then it also talks about so being able to read people's aura and kind of understand where they stand, with positive or negative, and then really understanding that if you and I meet at a supermarket or if you and I meet at an airport, there's a reason for you and I meeting.
Right.
But we don't practice that, so we just kind of shake hands and we walk away and we forget about it. But if you take a step back and you take at least 1 second just to understand exactly what happens or what happened, then it takes you to the next layer of understanding what that connection was. So one of the things that I do now is if I come across those moments where I realize it, I take a step back and I'll send people a message and say, hey, man, it was great seeing you. And that has evolved into being able to connect with them and say, oh, it was great. It was great to hear about, your new endeavor and I want to hear more. And then I've been able to develop or have support or they've helped me with issues that I would not have known if I didn't, send that message to them or if I didn't come across. So I tell a lot of people that, use those opportunities to really think about what just happened, right? The meeting, everything happens for a reason. So when you come across somebody that you haven't seen in 20 years, there's a reason for it. But you have to be able to practice that. You have to be able to practice that opportunity to be able to understand the connection that you guys just made. And so that book is really interesting because it kind of walks you through that journey, kind of understanding the evolution, the emotions, the connections that you make. And so for me, being able to connect with people is very important because, you know, in the world that we live in, we need to make sure that we have people that we trust around us, right? Because that's how we kind of lean on. And so, but also understanding where everybody stands, right? I mean, if you're having a bad day, I care about people. You know, I want to understand and see, hey, everything okay? You know, and maybe it's that 1 second that somebody asks you, is everything okay? And I've had a lot of opportunities where I've had friends break down and they've told me that they've had a really bad day and they thanked me for asking. Right? Because sometimes we just kind of walk away and we don't. So that's the practice that on that book that kind of makes you develop a sixth sense.
And I've seen you live that actually, Charlie, because I think that's one of the reasons why you've gotten so much engagement, because it's not always easy being someone who's not from here, right? And you're not from here, right?
Right.
But I think culturally you vibe with us, right? Just in terms of the spirit of the island, definitely. But also, I'm assuming that's why you agreed to be on the podcast at the last minute, right?
No, I love it. I feel like, Guam is home,
Right.
And I feel it, and that's the other part that is so amazing because I feel like I've lived here all my life, and the magical part of everything that goes on here was summed up in one instinct. We were helping out the Red Cross, so we decided to deliver the boxes during COVID to the homes that had ordered the Red Cross boxes, and so we try to spice it up. So I dressed up in a tuxedo.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I dressed up in a tuxedo and I was delivering the boxes, and some boxes were purchased by corporate donations, and then they were given out to specific people that they knew, friends and families, and. I remember I pulled up to a house, and it still had a tin roof. It was deep in the village as well, and we heard the dogs barking, and we came across, and the gentleman came out, and he said, can I help you? And I said, yes. We're here to deliver a Red Cross box, and he quickly reached somewhere. He went outside and he had like $1 and some change, and he wanted to give me that as a tip. And I said, no, we don't take tips, right? But I can only imagine like if that was like his last, $1 or $2 that he had, but he was willing to give it to me.
Right.
And I think that's the epitome, I think, of how we all work, in this island together. And I think that is where my heart is. And I want to be able to do everything that I can to be able to support the island, not only from an economical standpoint, but education. That's why I'm teaching at UOG, because I feel like we have to give back. We have to teach in one way or another, and you'll impact. And if you can impact one person, you never know who that person may evolve to be later in the future. President of the United States or an astronaut. I mean, you name it, a scientist that's going to find a cure for cancer, So I think that's part of the whole evolution, and I owe it all to Guam.
And that notion of giving, I think, is also important in entrepreneurship, right? Because I think you have to come from that place to get as well. And if you're coming from that place of giving and helping, it will come back to you one way or the other.
Yeah, I completely believe in that. And one of my first ventures, it was a company called, it was another tech company. It was called Ship Zeus. And,
I'm sorry, what?
Ship Zeus.
Ship Zeus?
Yeah, Ship Zeus.
Oh, Ship Zeus.
Yeah,
okay.
Ship Zeus.
Right.
And so I shelved it, but it's still there. I may kind of dust it off and look at it again. But Ship Zeus was going to be the Expedia for shipping.
Okay.
So if you go online, even today, to this day, you don't really have something that would allow you to streamline if you're not in the shipping industry, it could be tough. And then it kind of, if you're not in the shipping industry, you automatically sort of gravitate towards the USPS, UPS, FedEx, those folks. But there's other ways to ship. And so, when Expedia came out, we became our own travel agents, right? So we, from where to where, and then, what dates, and then it pulled up the, consolidated costing for all the airlines. So we wanted to do that for the shipping industry as well. And so I quit my job, and I set forth on launching this business. I was living in San Francisco at the time, so for the first 6 months, I went to these boot camps to learn how to code, because I want to be able to sort of create my own,
Right.
understand the codes and stuff. So for 6 months, went all to these boot camps, learned how to code, and then I had a run rate of about 18 months. So at month 18, I would have run out of money, and still paying bills, mortgage, cars, and so I thought that this idea was just going to be $1 billion idea, and so we developed it. We had a little prototype. We started pitching it, and different incubators, and we were getting some hits, and we were trying to raise capital that time. We needed about $4.5 million to really get it started with the engineers and so forth. But again, I will tell you that my belief and what we were doing was not focused on creating something that's going to impact change. It was really focused on this $1 billion idea I had. I thought it was $1 billion idea, and so I was focusing on the money. And so month 12, 13, 14 came around, 15 came around, and we still didn't have any funding. And I quickly started looking at, man, am I going to be on the street? Like I'm going to, hit rock bottom.
Right.
I was ready to, have no money, really $0 in the account, and we were able to salvage it in a way that we paid for all the expenses, but we shelved the idea because at month 18th I needed to pay bills. So I went to looking for a job because I quickly understood that I needed to raise money for myself.
Right.
So I shelved the idea, and from that point on, everything that I've done from that point on has not been focused on the money. I think that if you chase the money, you're going to fail. I think the money's going to come with the idea and the powerful impact that you're going to make on the business that you're starting. And so my notion now, when I do look at businesses, is really focusing on being able to understand the market, how are we going to impact change, and how are we going to change people's lives, right? Be able to hire them, pay them well, grow the industry on Guam, a new industry on Guam, and so everything else will come when it comes to monetary with money and so forth. So we've been blessed so far. We've gotten some really good jobs, but that's one thing that I learned from that first experience was if you chase the money, you're going to fail, and that's what I did, and I did. I didn't really get it to the point where I needed to get it to, and if I had refocused on what it was going to serve, then maybe it would have been different. But it's all part of the learning game, and so I know what it is to be down to the last dollar and understand that you have all these bills to pay, and so that's one of the things that I promote as well is don't chase the money, understand the ability to be able to create this business and know that the money will come.
So is that in line with what your core philosophy is as an entrepreneur? If you don't mind sharing what that is.
Yeah. So I think the basis of what I, from an entrepreneurial perspective, is how do we flip and impact change? So the easiest way to sort of describe that is the Uber model, right? So the Uber model flipped the taxi service, and it created an avenue for people to make money, be very flexible, ride share, be able to get picked up anywhere in any city. So I focus on those things that are worked and have to be flipped, that could impact change in a positive way. That's what I really focus on from an entrepreneurial perspective, is how to change things up in a way that it can make it more streamlined and profitable.
Understood. Huh. So tell me about? Hold on, I gotta first my
Yeah.
notes. Sorry. How are we on time?
Minute 40. Yeah.
We're at 40. Okay.
That last segment was like really good. So.
Yeah, I thought so too. We got gold here, Charlie.
Tired.
What's that?
Extra goal here.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna ask you about what you see as the next frontier for drones in real estate, and maybe we can talk about marketing.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'm going to ask you what's next for Bella Wings. Right. Bella Wings is a nonprofit, right?
No, we're for profit.
You're for profit.
Yeah.
But initially, isn't there a foundation that you have, or is it Wings and Women in Aviation?
Women in
That's
Aviation,
a
that's-
nonprofit.
yeah, that's a nonprofit.
Okay, understood. Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll-
Oh, we just go right. Yeah. Charlie, can you tell me a little bit more about where you see as the next step in the evolution of the application of drones in real estate, maybe from the marketing side?
Yeah, no, absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, we really want to work closely with the real estate market because we believe that the evolution of the drone technology can really evolve in a way that it can tell the story for the folks that are trying to promote either selling their properties or whether it's land, whether it's a home. And I think that as the drones get even smaller, we're able to capture these inside shots that are amazing, what they call killer shots.
Right.
Or money shots, I'm sorry. They're called money shots.
Okay.
And so it's really using, for example, FPV drones on one take and fly through the entire building, kind of create a storyline for that specific property. But also for property management, right? So we can do the assessment of, with the properties for post-typhoon recovery, right? So we can digitize a model. We can actually create a 3D model for areas, whether it's land, whether it's buildings, and keep that on file. And then, if something happens, post-typhoon, you can take that and say, okay, this is the way the house used to look, or this is the way the land used to look, and now it looks this way, based on the digitized 3D model that we've created. So on the mapping side, on the videography side, those things are continuously evolving, and I think that the realtors are really catching on to the utilization of drones and being able to tell their story or kind of sell their property using drone footage. And I think that we want to be able to work closely with the realtor market in a way that it doesn't become too cumbersome because there is a cost, right? And until the realtor sells a property, they're not going to get paid either, right? So they're actually they're putting the money up front to be able to do all the stuff that they're doing. So we want to be able to look into that to see if there's something there that we could potentially do. Maybe we can include our services as part of the closing fees.
Understood.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, just kind of thinking
Be
outside
creative,
be
right.
creative, thinking
Understood,
outside the
yeah.
box because we understand that they don't have the money as well. And so depending on how vast and what kind of service they're looking for, it does come with a cost. But maybe we can include that in the as part of the overall package once the property does sell. So
Can you do old school, like trail a banner?
yeah,
Trail a banner to the open house or something like that, right?
that's pretty cool.
Can-
Yeah.
Can you do an arrow? Like, so let's talk about digital signage, right? Can I have drones hovering over my building with like an arrow, like during certain times of the day?
Yep, absolutely.
And I would think the cost would be fairly reasonable.
Yeah, very, very reasonable. Yeah, so we do have a banner drone. The banners, we were, during COVID, we were trying to promote. It's a banner that goes actually around one of the larger drones that we have. So we would get them printed, and then we would drape them around, and they would just kind of fly around with the logo or whatever message you wanted to put. One of the things that we were looking at was potentially putting the QR codes on these banners.
Right.
And so when folks were stuck in the hotels or they couldn't leave, we would fly, we would promote like a restaurant or we would promote something, whoever, if they were selling anything, we would put their QR code and then they would fly up towards their, hotel window and then you can scan it and you can, pull in the, possibly the menu or, the message that they were trying to promote.
Well, I guess theoretically, if you're hovering with the QR code, even if you're shooting it from the distance, your phone would recognize it. You
Correct.
can still go to the link. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what's next for you in Bella Wings? Like, what sector or what initiative do you plan on focusing on next?
So I think, obviously we want to continue the development of the drone light show has been very good to us in a way that it has allowed us to put a lot of creative mind into it, a lot of creative focus. And we love sort of telling the storyline in the sky, which is amazing.
I like the clock, but I thought it was gonna start counting down. Yeah, next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are the things we think about. But so we want to continue to focus on the drone light show. We want to get it more from a cost-effective way so that we can promote it with companies that want to do, just pop up, like for example, put up title, in the sky. Just,
Well, that's why I asked, right?
Yeah, and just get it, on Friday nights or like, once the tourists do come out, maybe we can do a show every Friday night, and we'll, pop up the drones. We'll, sponsored by such and such company and so forth. We've gotten a lot of requests for engagements and so forth. So we want to be able to get that into a more economical way so that people can have the ability to pay for it. And then the aero blasting has been really, really good as well.
You mean the window cleaning?
The window cleaning and the wall cleaning. So that's part of the beautification, right, of the island. I think that the more we can get it to a point where the mold and everything else has gone away, then the pictures, because we've done a lot of shots for the realtors as well, and you can only Photoshop so much, right? You can only Photoshop so
Trust
much.
me, we've all tried.
So we want to be able to promote, and I think seeing is believing when it comes to the drone washing system, because sometimes people they're like, what? You're using drones to clean windows and buildings? I'm like, yeah, so come on out and see it. And then once they see it, they get it, right? And so they get the application of what it represents. And again, using the drone technology cuts in manpower, right? It cuts it in half, but also the safety factor. Like, we don't have people rappelling off, the top floors and so forth using a drone, which is it's much safer. And the third thing is we're gonna continue to pursue what the goal and the vision of the company was, and that was to make drone deliveries. And so we're always kind of taking one step forward on the development. I think right now the biggest thing that we wanted to do is we've partnered up with Good to Go on making deliveries. And so one of the things that we've opened up is if you have a PO box or if you don't have an address, we're going to give you one now.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go online and now you can order on Amazon, and we're going to deliver to your door. The first phase is actually going to be a vehicle delivery, which is Good to Go. So their drivers are going to be able to pull up to your place of residency and deliver the mail or packages that you've ordered. And then obviously once that infrastructure is really well in place, because people have never, if you go down south, there's some families that have never got any mail delivered straight to their door.
Yes, I understand that.
So we we've been working closely with the mayors, and we have our first I have a meeting with the mayor of Agate tomorrow, and we're gonna set a date to where we're gonna have sort of a open forum for the people to come in and kind of listen to how this program is going to work, and it's kind of make them believe that yes, you're going to start getting packages delivered to your door. And when you look at it and you look at how is this impacting change, we're in 2024 and we still have families that can't get mail or packages to their home, and I don't believe in that. I believe that everybody should have the right for this type of service. Everybody should have the right to be able to receive goods, whether you live in a tin hut, whether you live in a tree, whether you live in a high rise, whether you live in $1 million home. Everybody should have the right to be able to have this service in this day and age. So creating this infrastructure is going to be very key. And then once everything's set in place, we're going to take the next phase would be to actually make the deliveries using drones.
That's awesome. And I think the burning question with that is, with the first delivery, will you be wearing a tuxedo?
Yes.
All right. You heard it here first, folks. Well, Charlie, I really value your time, so I think we'll stop. But I really appreciate you coming out and sharing your knowledge and your journey with us. And I look forward to checking in with you down the road, or maybe having you jump on with some other people just to mix it up. But thank you for being the first on Market Movers. It's been a pleasure engaging with you in this way, and I look forward to seeing your future success.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. Like I said, it's an honor being number one. And hopefully, there were some good sound bites here that, people can take away and, some positive stuff. And I'm always here. I'm always, that's one thing that you'll always have for me is like, if you ever need anything, even if it's just idea to share ideas, to talk, I'll always be here to listen and provide my opinions and input.
Well, we got to talk about that title banner later. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Again, I'm Ryan Mummert. I'm with Market Movers, presented by Title Guarantee. I want to say I appreciate all of you for tuning in, and I look forward to having you all tune into the next episode. Thank you.